Alright, this is part 2 of this little resin casting demo that I'm putting together. As you can see, I have reassembled the box around the mold, and get a closer look at the mold. I kind of took advantage of the Legos themselves to have little guiding pins, sort of. I used toothpicks to be my pour channels. Basically, I just dipped them in some super glue and then stuck them on. Works pretty well. And this is going to be my air vent up here, and this one will be my pour vent. I had coated it like a week ago before I knew my silicone RTV was no good, using mold release. Make sure you use the right stuff for whatever you're using silicones, so that's what I used. Hopefully it doesn't cause any problems. It's been on there for a long time, and it's had plenty of time to dry. I just hit it with another coat just to be safe. And we're all degassed, so we're going to go ahead and start to pour. Since I'm not going to be degassing this again once I pour it, even though I should, I'm just being very careful to pour it at a consistent pace, trying my best not to form any new air bubbles, and just kind of letting the material flow over everything. Now that this is cured, let's take it apart and see how it turned out. And this will fit together very well as a very snug mold. It's very solid because there are no air bubbles. There we go. And for this one, I'm gonna just kind of cut out a little bit with a razor, so that I can just kind of pour some resin in and get my piece. So I'm going to give this another go. I poured one last night, one of my parts, and pressurized it. It came out pretty well for a clear part. Only a couple little air bubbles here. That's just because it didn't fill very well. And it didn't quite fill all the way to the end. There's about a 1/4 inch or about 5 millimeters that it didn't fill towards the end. So I'm going to give this another go. I made some changes to my system to try to help this out. When using the clear resin, you only have less than 5 minutes to work with it, so it's very difficult to degas it, pour the mold, and then pressurize it. So to make this a bit easier, I've done a couple things. So I wanted to improve the quality of my degassing chamber because I felt like it was just taking a bit longer than it should. So I, instead of using the aluminum pot I had been using, I decided just to use the pressure pot. You could save yourself a bunch, like $30 if you decide to get a system like this and just use your pressure chamber as your degassing chamber as well. So what I did was I re-tapped, or drilled a new hole and tapped that with the 1/8 inch NPT pipe threading tap, and put the little hose barb in there. What I should do is add a bit of Teflon tape to this, but I ordered some pipe thread sealant from Loctite, and that should arrive in a few days. So when I get that, I'm going to go ahead and just apply that to all of the threads on this and threads over here on the vacuum pump as well, and that should help it degas a bit quicker. I did a trial run and it worked pretty well. It seemed to degas, but a little bit quicker, so hopefully it works better this time. Since I have such a short amount of time to work with, I've got my little pancake compressor all pressurized. It's at about almost 60 psi. So once that's ready, I'll be able to just swap tops, throw on the new lid, plug in the quick connect, and then open up the valve and pressurize it. So that should take just about 30 seconds to do if I'm very quick about it. And yep, I did redo some of the fittings on this one too, just because there was a pretty bad leak in this one where the gauge is. So I added a new fitting in between that and used some Teflon tape to seal that up. Hopefully that works a lot better, so we don't get any leaks this time. I mean, there'll be some, but not quite as bad. And I've got my mold over here propped up at an angle. I might actually prop it up a bit more, or I could just do it by hand. This is because it's so thin that it's having trouble pouring, and I probably should have made the mold so it was a top pouring mold like this, but I don't really feel like making it over again because it's going to be another $30 in rubber. So I'm going to try to work with what I've got here, and I'm going to give it another go. So I'm going to go ahead and pour up some more resin, try to quickly degas it, try to quickly swap out the lids, or pour the mold, then swap out the lids, and then pressurize it. And hopefully I can do this all in under 5 minutes, otherwise it's not going to work. So if it doesn't work, I'll have to skip the degassing stage and probably just be careful when I mix it, and then just pour it. So let's get to work. Okay, since I am not going to be worrying about mixing up too many air bubbles, since I'm going to be degassing this, I'm going to go ahead and pour this very quickly and mix it very vigorously, very quickly, and then throw it in the chamber very quickly, degas it, and just gonna keep going as fast as I can to do this before it cures. So I don't need much. 2.07 grams. Go ahead and reset that. There we go. So, start the clock. Alright, so it's starting to cure, so I'm going to go ahead and get it into the pot. So I got to throw on the cover. Okay, so it's like 39 psi, and that is a good amount of pressure to do casting at. So this is going to take about 3 hours to be able to remove from the mold, and since it's such a thin piece that I'm probably going to leave it for the night, because it just takes longer for thin pieces like this, and in my experience it takes the whole night to fully cure. So I'll come back to this tomorrow, and hopefully we have a completed or completely filled mold. My feelings from the way it was filling is that it's probably not completely full, but we will see, and if it's not, we'll try to make some changes to it shortly. But alright, let's wait till tomorrow. And again, that last one was actually much worse. I just did not get enough material in there. So what I did was I went to the hobby shop and bought some brass tube, pretty big sized, and if you can see that, there's a very nice round hole there, much larger than the hole used to be. Basically, if you just push this brass rod through, it cuts through the silicone rubber very easily. So I use that to just widen the hole a bit. And on the air vent too, I used a smaller diameter brass tube to just kind of cut through that to clean that out a little bit too. And I think that seemed to work. It's filled up all the way. I can see resin in here. It's like all the way through. So I think I have a good piece. You guys are just gonna have to take my word on it. I'm gonna probably upload this video tonight and go from there. So this is definitely a learning process. Different molds, like different parts cast better certain ways, and I'm still learning the best way to do this. If this still doesn't work, what I probably will do is I'll actually probably fill these up with some more silicone rubber, and then come through and using this brass rod cut some holes through here and pour it that way. But that's kind of a last resort effort. I feel like this is going to work, so hopefully it does, and I'll have a part. So thank you for watching, and hopefully this was helpful. Feel free to hit me with any questions that you guys may have. I'll be happy to answer them the best I can, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.